Much. We want to appreciate the name of God for giving us the privilege to be alive. And I would like to also appreciate Dr. Daniel and Meredith for this privilege to present the 8th edition of IACD Sub-Saharan African Region webinar. Today, the Wednesday, the 18th day of July, year 2021. We are going to be looking at this very interesting topic, the relationship between the universities and host communities. So we actually want to look at it from the Nigerian perspective to see whether it is a symbiosis or a parasitism. So I think talking about the rationale behind this topic, recently I got engaged with some my university here. I've actually spent like 13 years of my lifetime studying and working with different universities, and I did a 2-year diploma program in adult education. Then after that, I enrolled for 3 years bachelor degree in adult education and community development. Then after that, I enrolled for a master's degree program in community development. Then I went to South Africa for my PhD, which I actually did in human and social sciences education. Then after that, I was privileged to be at the University of Johannesburg for 1 year postdoctoral fellowship. And when I completed that one, I came back home here in Nigeria, and I've been working with my university, which is Adekunle Ajasin University, for the past 2 years. So throughout my engagement with these universities, I discovered that talking about community relations, host community relations, and host community cares, that particular aspect has not really been given a due consideration by most of the universities I've worked with. Yeah, it's true that every year the university organizes open day programs in order to sensitize the people of the community with different programs that are available in the university. But in terms of really taking time to put their needs on the agenda of the university, in taking time to hear from them what they actually want, that aspect, there is a gap which I've discovered. And that actually made me to launch into this project when I started working with the university here at Adekunle Ajasin University, in order to look at how our university can further assist the host communities so that most of the challenges that we are seeing around can be responded to. And some of these challenges, we will briefly talk about them as time goes on in this webinar. Now, talking about the overview of the presentation, we are going to be looking at some clarifications in terms of the topic, the theme of these presentations. Then we are going to be looking at the rationale, the contextualization of the presentation in terms of what our university look like, what the community, the host communities, what are the realities in terms of the people living in the host communities. Then we also make some highlights about the benefits of symbiotic relationship between the university and the host communities. Then the problems that we have identified that are facing the people in the host communities here, the people of AKUNGBA-AKOKO. I'm also going to do a brief highlight of those problems. Then our projects, the project which I started late last year with some of my undergraduate students in order to relate with the community people, in order to hear from them. So I'm also going to talk briefly about that. Then we are going to look at the voices, the responses from the host community cells, not people. So we are going to look at that, then we will draw some conclusion from the presentation. Permit me to just quickly open my system. I think it's ready now. So now, doing some clarifications. Thank you so much, Meredith. When we talk about symbiosis, I believe some of us, we have seen that word in the theme. It's actually a word that was taken from biological sciences. For some of us who are not a science student, I'm also not a science student, and I actually try to look at the meaning of the word symbiosis from the Cambridge Online Dictionary, and it says that a relationship between two types of animal or plant in which each provides for the other the condition necessary for its continued existence. Now, in terms of symbiosis, is a relationship between people or organization that depend on each other equally. In other words, it means that there is a kind of equal representation. There is a kind of equal advantages. When two organizations or two people meet and they relate, it is expected that they are going to benefit from the relationship equally. The same thing applies to the university and host communities. When the university is located in a particular space, in a particular location, the university is expected to, discharge some responsibilities, provide some services to the host communities, because the host communities have initially provided the location, the land where the university is built. And that is what I believe should be the expectation worldwide. Then it's an interaction between two different organisms living in close physical association, typically to the advantage of both. So you should have a kind of win-win situation. And I want us to begin to think about our universities. Some of us that work in the university back home where we work, do we have this situation in our university? Is our university actually giving back to the community, to the host communities, what the communities have actually gave them in terms of the space where the university is located? So it is very important that we begin to look at those things, so that some of us, all of us here, we are actually community development practitioners, and it is something that we really need to begin to take up if our university is not actually living up to the task. Next slide, Meredith. So we look at parasitism, which is like the opposite of symbiosis. According to Cambridge Online Dictionary, it is the fat of one animal or plant living on or in another animal or plant of a different type and feeding from it. So it means that relationship between two species or plants or animals in which one benefits at the expense of the other. So it means that when the host communities and the universities, when the university is located in a particular host communities, if there is a situation whereby the university is thriving at the expense of the host communities, then it means that there is a kind of parasitism. The university can be called a parasite because it's living, it's existing on the land provided by the host communities, and it's not giving back what is necessary for the host communities to be sustained, to be developed, and for the people of the land, the indigenous people of the host communities, to be able to also realize their dreams and ambitions. And I discovered that most of the times, this is the situation in most of the developing countries of the world, especially Nigeria, where we have universities being established on a yearly basis. We are going to look at this further, how the Nigerian government is actually trying to establish universities. And we see that the more universities are established, the more lands are taken. from the host communities. And it is very important that these people whose life have been taken to also be able to get adequate compensation, so that at the end of the day, the situation will not be like a parasitism. They will not see the university as a parasite whereby they are just living at the expense of the host communities. Okay, now talking about the hierarchy between the university and host communities. We all know that in terms of existence, we are not talking about the hierarchy of importance now, but we are talking about the hierarchy of existence. University the communities exist before the university. The hierarchy between the university and community is not a complicated one, like that of the situation of the chicken and egg, when people ask that which one came first between chicken and egg. Some people will say egg, and if you say egg, it is the chicken that lays the egg. And if you say chicken, they will say that it is the egg that becomes a chicken. So which means that it's actually complicated. We cannot say this one actually came first. But in terms of the university and host community, it's not as complicated as that situation, because we know that the community exists first. And it is through the existence of the community that the university now came and took over some part of the community. And the university is actually expected to work for the good of the host community, for a kind of balanced situation, a kind of sustainable relationship to happen between the two entities. Next slide. Now, when there is a symbiotic relationship between university and the host community, we all know that this kind of cordial relationship will bring peace, will bring stability. It will enhance the security of both parties, and it will also bring progress in terms of the sustainable existence of the university in the community. Though in the past we have heard of some communities reacting to the existence of the university. Some of the communities are saying in Nigeria that the existence of the communities, of the universities, is bringing various kinds of threats to them. And we see that in that situation, there is no cordial relationship, there is no symbiotic relationship. And the community provides the environment within which the university can thrive. When there is a symbiotic relationship, the host communities will make everything available for the university in terms of everything they need. And the university is also expected to provide opportunity for economic prosperity of the community in terms of enhancing the trade of the people of the community, in terms of social growth, and in terms of community development. Now we are talking about community development on a daily basis. We see that most of the development that takes place in most of the host communities are not actually from the university. It is the effort of the host communities or the government at the grassroots to look at how these host communities can be developed. And there is nothing wrong about that. What we are saying is that the university too must respond. The university too must discharge their responsibilities. The university too must appreciate the fact that the host communities provide the environment in which they live, in which they exist, in which they discharge their operations. So when this happens, both parties will benefit equally. The community will not see, the people in the community will not see themselves as being cheated by the university. They will also be able to appreciate the presence of the university in their land, in their communities. Next slide, please. Now, I look at literature to actually, identify some things to consider in building sustainable university community relationship. And when I'm talking about university community, I'm actually particular about the host communities. Of course, most of the time, the universities see the larger society as their communities, but we need to come down to that narrow point of recognizing the fact that the host communities needs the attention of the university first before now discharging services to other communities, other states, other regions, that surrounds the university. So some of the literature that I've actually, looked at, identified some of these things as very important to sustaining sustainable university community partnerships. The first one is the university to come down from the high horses. We know that most of the time when some of us that are working with the university, when we go to the community to render some services or to supervise some community development projects, we go there with our sophistications. We go there with our titles. We go there with the fact that we work in the university, and we put on our white collar for them to be able to see us that actually these people are from the university. But most of the time our presence intimidates them. And we try to not to listen to them because some of them even refuses to relate with us by the way we appear, by the languages that we use, by the kind of approach that we introduce. So we really need to come down to their level. If it is necessary for us to go with some members of the community, or to initiate or to include some of the members of the community in most of the projects that we are doing, it will actually go a long way in helping these communities to feel included in what we are doing in the university. Then community voices matters. We need to let them define what they want. We need to let them explain to us the challenges they are facing in their languages, which means that the use of indigenous languages is very important when we are dealing with university host communities. Of course, we can look at them that they are host communities. The university have been in existence for a very long time. So they should know that these are the things that the university represents. But most of the time, majority of them don't know what actually the university represents. And they actually want us to come down to their level, to listen to what they have to say, so that through what they said, we'll be able to design interventions, we'll be able to design programs and projects that will respond to most of the challenges that they face. Then we need to recognize the legitimate roles and interests of the community members. Now, when most of the community members, the host communities members, comes into partnership with the university, they also have their roles. We should give them some roles to play. Then they have interests. They have a kind of ambition. They have a goal. They have their own personal and collective interest that they actually want to satisfy. Therefore, we should try as much as possible to recognize this and provide enabling environment for them to be able to, to achieve some of the goals that they have. Then we need to share information with community leaders. I was talking to one of the heads of departments in my university recently about a particular marathon that the university was planning. We were planning a marathon race, and the university was busy planning, mapping the tracks, engaging with the sponsors without actually informing the host communities. So I began to actually let them know that, okay, when the athletes arrive, many of them are going to lodge in the host communities, and the community people will begin to ask questions, what is actually going on in the university? So it's very important that most of the crucial programs that we are doing in our universities, we should carry the host communities along. It may require that we have a representative in the host communities who will serve as the mouthpiece, who will be able to relate what the university is planning in terms of programs and projects back to the communities in the languages they understand, so that at the end of the day, there will be a kind of information flow to them as well. Then we need to recognize the importance of the partnership, that the partnership we are proposing, the partnership that we are expecting that it should happen between the university and the host communities, we need to know that this partnership is important and it should grow beyond what is a one-off project. It should be sustained and it should be there, so that even the coming generations from the host communities will know that actually the university is there for their good. Then we should always acknowledge the sacrifices made by the indigenous people of the community. You know, especially in my university, the university here, where I'm currently teaching, is sitting on about 200 hectares of land. And these lands were taken from the host communities. So these people have really made huge sacrifices for the university to exist. So therefore, we need to acknowledge this, and we need to, let them know that the university is grateful for releasing some of those resources to the university. Next slide, Meredith. Thank you. Now, talking about acknowledging the sacrifices made by the indigenous people. What are these sacrifices? We have land, we have farmlands. Some of them, their lands were taken. Some of them, their farms, the farms that the family has been depending on for generations, were taken. And some of the indigenous crafts, the vocations of the communities can no longer practice them because of the presence of the university. And some of them also lost their houses, their properties. And someone said that the two most stolen items in the world today is the surplus value of workers and the indigenous land. And this is true because in most of the countries now, we are talking about land redistribution. I believe that kind of conversation is going on in South Africa, whereby the blacks are saying that some lands were taken from the blacks and given to some white farmers. And that debate will actually continue. And it's not only in South Africa, it's also happening here in Nigeria too, especially where I am now. I mean, the university where I'm teaching, where some community members are saying they need their lands back because there is a kind of feelings of dissatisfaction, with the existence of the university. Now, talking about acknowledging the sacrifices made by the indigenous people, I began to, do some research about how the developed universities, I mean, the universities in some developed countries, how they acknowledge the sacrifices made by their host communities. And I stumbled on some universities in Australia. One of them is the University of Sydney. So when I visited the website, I saw that there is always this rider on the website, which says that the University of Sydney acknowledges that its campuses and facilities sit on the ancestral lands of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, who have for thousands of generations exchanged knowledge for the benefit of all. Looking at this kind of acknowledgement, it stays there on their website. Throughout, anyone that visits the website, we know that the university is actually grateful for the fact that the indigenous people that gave up their lands, they sacrifice a lot in ensuring that the university exists. So they put that acknowledgement there out so that anybody that comes will be able to see it. And I want to believe that it goes beyond giving an acknowledgement on the website. I want to believe that there are some programs that the university is doing in order to include the Aboriginals, the indigenous people in the programs and plans of the university. Next slide. Then another university in Australia, the University of Adelaide, I saw another rider there that says the University of Adelaide proudly stands of Kaurna land. We acknowledge and recognize this in everything we do. You know, it's provide a kind of suiting situation for the, you know, indigenous people, for them to have really been acknowledged on the homepage of the university. And also, I want to talk about my university where I did my PhD, the University of Zululand in South Africa. I noticed that in every important occasions of the university, there is a particular family they always acknowledge, the Mkwanazi family. They acknowledge them during the graduation. They acknowledge them during any inaugural lecture or any important occasion of the university. In fact, they give them special seats in the hall, and they usually call their names, and they usually tell the people about the sacrifices that the people have made for the, you know, for the university. And this is the kind of appreciation, the kind of acknowledgement that I think the university should be doing. And they should also go beyond that by looking into some of the needs of the people in the community and respond to them. Now, I just want to briefly talk about the projects that we are doing here at the Adekunle Ajasin University and some of the problems that we have identified that made us to embark on that project. You know, why the university exists primarily to engage in teaching, research, and community service, the aspect of community service to the host communities is not prioritized. You know, what I see is that many scholars, many lecturers, many academics, when I engage them about doing service to the host communities, many of them think that the teaching, research, and the conference presentations, the papers they are publishing, can actually, you know, stand in place of rendering service for the host community. Many things that, yes, of course, when we teach students, they go back to the communities to transfer the knowledge or to work for various industries in the communities. Yeah, it is true that we are contributing to the community. Then when we do research, we work in the laboratory, we perform experiment, and we come out with some results. For instance, as the world is battling with the pandemic of COVID-19 now, some scientists have gone into the laboratories and they have been able to produce vaccines. We can call that as service to the community as well, but it should not stop at that level. There is a place of relating with the local people, meeting with them, asking them about the challenges they are facing, because many of them are having this feeling of dissatisfaction, and some of them feel threatened with the presence of the university, especially the local people that have limited literacy skills. They are also looking at the university in terms of what they can benefit from the university. Many of them have children that cannot, you know, gain admission into the university because of their inability to afford to pay the tuition of the university. And we have many of them in Nigeria like that are also expectant. They have given up their lands, they have given up their farms, they gave up their properties. Though some of them did not give up this thing voluntarily, they were forcefully taken by the government. Though government tried to provide some sort of compensation, but these compensations are not enough. So they are expectant, they want the university to come down to them. So there is this gap, and this made us to actually embark on this project. Now, a bit of context here. In Nigeria, currently we have about, over 200 million in terms of population, according to the World Bank. And the universities in Nigeria are categorized as federal, state, and private owned. It means that we have some universities that are federally sponsored, federally owned and financed, and we have some that are state owned because we practice federal system of government where we have federal, state, and local governments councils. So then we also have some individuals and religious bodies that own private universities in Nigeria. Currently, we have 197 active universities as of December 2020. And recently, the federal government of Nigeria just gave licenses to 20 new private universities. And these private universities will commence their operation in the year 2022. And more universities are still being established on a yearly basis. So we can see that there is need for us to, we community development practitioners, to actually, upscale our efforts in terms of talking about the university host community relationship. Because the more universities are established, the more community land will be taken. The universities are increasing every day, but lands are not increasing. So we really need to look at how these universities will take care of the host communities and the indigenous people. Next slide. So now talking about Adekunle Ajasin University, where I'm currently teaching. The university is owned by state government in Ondo State, and it was established in the year 1999. So the university is 22 years old this year. And the present location of the university, which is AKUNGBA-AKOKO, that's the name of the community. It's actually a rural community. And the major occupation of the people is farming. So which means that before the university came here, majority, 85% of people here are farmers. They have their lands, they are planting different types of crops, cassava, maize, cocoa, and some other, cash crops. But when the university came, the large part of their lands were taken. Hectares of land belonging to these indigenous people were taken and transferred to the university. And that's the system. Now, the AKUNGBA-AKOKO community, when the lands were taken from them, the state government paid some compensations to some landowners. Majority of those who gave up their lands are dissatisfied with this compensation. When we interviewed some of the people in the communities, they said that the government did not pay for the lands. They just asked them to move to other areas that are very far to their communities to go and do their farming activities. And the government did not provide the means of transportation for them. And some of them said that the government did not even give them the lands that they asked them to relocate to free of charge, that they actually wanted them to pay for it. And these community people, they were showing their dissatisfaction by reoccupying the vacant lands within the university. They did not take the permission of the university. On a daily basis, when you come to the university, you see them carrying the produce of their farms. And they're not even afraid to pass through some official buildings of the university. Even when some official functions are going on, like matriculation exercise, like graduation, these people, they are not scared of passing through these official functions while they are, coming from their farm. So these are some of the things that I saw, and I felt that these people are actually making some statements, and there is a need for the university to listen to them so that they can respond to some of this dissatisfaction in them. And some of these indigenous people have been reported in the past by the students that they were transferring their aggression on students, because most of the students live in the community, and these landlords and landladies, they are not really showing them, a kind of pleasure that they should be able to give them. And it shows that many of them are saying that you are university students, your university is not really doing us good, and they are trying to transfer those aggression to them. Next slide. Now, the project we are trying to do, which commenced late last year, is an ongoing project. We are still collecting data in terms of meeting with the university authority, because we have met with some communities in order to listen to their voices. We have met with the indigenous people in the communities to, ask them to address some of those things that they think they want. Then, in order for us to be able to do this, we identify some key stakeholders and leaders within the community. Then we conducted a kind of one-on-one interviews with those that are farming in the community. Like the man that we saw in the picture that carried a pack of plantain. We had a kind of one-on-one interview with him. Then we also did a form of focus group discussions with these leaders, so that we'll be able to, to compare their responses with what other people are saying. And one of the things that is very key with this project is that we made use of indigenous language. We speak the language of the community. We try as much as possible to appear simple. We came down to their level, and we also made use of the people in the community. Next slide. Now, talking about the demographic characteristics of people that we have interacted with, we made sure that we selected people that are 40 years and above in the communities, because the university is currently 22 years old, and we felt that people that were mature, that were adults when the university was brought to this community, should have, something significant to say in terms of what the university have done for them so far and what they are expecting the university to do for them. So in terms of gender, we consider both male and female. Then the occupation of the people we interviewed were farming and artisans, and a few of the university workers, because most of the non-academic staffs, which we also call support staff in the university, are actually people from the community. So we also try to sample their opinion. Next slide. Then, now talking about this project, one key thing that we try to do is to make use of the undergraduate students who are indigenes of these communities. I have these two gentlemen. They are currently in their final year of undergraduate studies, and they happen to be my students, and they are from these communities. So they were involved in the data collections. In fact, they had to, design the questions and the way we should approach the data collection, because they know their people, and most of the people they interviewed are people that they are familiar with in the communities, and we're able to actually get some responses through them. Next slide. Now, highlights from the voices that we got from the communities. We discovered that most of the community people, the indigenous people in the communities, are still having these feelings of exclusion by the, from the university. They felt that in most of the things that the university is doing, they should be carried along. Then we also discovered that they want more from the university. They acknowledge the fact that the university have brought some opportunities to them in terms of employment, because many of them have been able to get employment from the university by the virtue of the presence of the university in their communities, but they want more than that. And they also want the university to revisit the compensation agreement they had. We discovered through some of the data we collected that the university had a kind of compensation agreement with the people they met at that time, though most of those people at that time were no longer there. Many of them are passed, but some of them that are still alive said that there was an agreement that the community as a whole made with the university in the presence of a legal representative, and they wanted the university to revisit those agreements because the university had breached some of those agreements with them. Then the indigenous people, they want to occupy some principal offices in the universities. You know, till date, with the 22 years of existence of the university, we have not had someone from this community becoming a vice chancellor or the registrar or any of the principal offices in the university. So they want this to happen because they felt that if they are able to have someone at a principal office, that person will be able to, you know, take their interests to heart. Next slide. Now, in conclusion, we know that for sustainable growth and development on the part of both the university and the community to happen, there is need for a symbiotic relationship, and not one that is characterized by pride on the part of the university and disdain on the part of the community, in the sense that the university should be able to, you know, go to the communities. They should be able to establish a kind of cordial relationship. The university should not expect the community to come to them most of the time. They should also be able to go to them because the challenges are obvious. When you enter the host community, you see most of these challenges there. Bad roads, some of the indigenous peoples did not have literacy skills. Some of them could not send their children to the university because of the high tuition fee. And you know, most of these things are what we are actually compiling as recommendations for the universities. We want to encourage the university to be able to introduce some scholarship programs that we, you know, accommodate the children of the host, I mean, the children of the indigenous people who gave up their lands, because I discovered that this has been a practice in some communities, I mean, some countries, especially in South Africa, at the University of Zululand. I discovered that the children from the host family, the family of Mkwanazi, are being given scholarship on yearly basis, and it is sustainable and it's for life based on what the university has put up as an arrangement. So I think it is not too much for our university to also be able to do this, so that the children of the people that gave up their lands will be able to have access to free education in terms of giving scholarship to them, and also in terms of helping them solving some of the problems that they face. I think that concludes the presentation. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Sunday. That was amazing. I think a round of applause from all of us, really.
Thank you so much, Meredith.
Thank you. So if anyone has any questions for Sunday, we can open up the floor. You can just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your questions. There might be some in the chat as well.
Yes, I'm looking at some comments in the chat box.
Yes.
Yeah, hello.
Go ahead.
Hi, yeah, Sunday, so thanks so much for talk. It was quite interesting actually. Yeah, especially the building relationship, because you know, but probably my question is are we gonna, you know, change the relationship between the community and the university? Because you know, in many of the Western countries, we are operating as like, you know, like buyer and sellers. You know, university create a program as a part of the product. Yeah. So we,
okay.
you know, we're trying to, you know, the university thinks they're trying to pass through the customer to buy a product. Yeah. So it's not really reciprocity kind of relationship. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for the question. Actually, there is nothing wrong with the university, trying to produce a product and selling to the communities. I think that is also one of the roles that the university is supposed to play. Like currently, we know that the COVID-19 vaccines were discovered by some scientists, and these vaccines are not free, though they are free to people taking it, but the governments of different countries are paid for these vaccines. And most of the people that came up with these vaccines were actually from the university. So there's nothing wrong with the university making products available to the community at a cost. But what we are saying is that that should not be the case at all times. The university needs to render services, sometimes free, for the community, for the sake of helping the communities to thrive too, because the university is thriving by having different experts coming to work in the university, coming to partner with the university is thriving. So the thriving of the university should not be at the expense of the community. Some communities have challenges that they cannot solve themselves, and they cannot afford to pay to have those problems solved. So the university should come to their rescue. So that's what the presentation is actually trying to achieve.
Yeah, that's what I understand. That's a great point, because university will have to reach out to the community instead of like waiting, university waiting for the community to come in, kind of stuff, because sometimes there are things that like, we create a product and they're hoping that they'll solve the problem of the community, but it might not actually be the case because they have not done the market validations. They did not talk to the communities at all. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the situation most of the time. So we are saying that even before, it may even require that before those products are created, they need to sample the opinion of the community people. Some of these products should not be forced on them. It should come out of their felt need. It should come out of the challenges they are facing, so that at the end of the day, that product can enjoy a kind of wide patronage from the host communities.
Thank you so much. That was a good point. Thanks so much. And yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, Jim, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Very interesting and challenging. You didn't say too much about models of research, such as action research or participative research, and in a sense, how these might deal with some of the concerns that you raise. Just from my own experience in a university in northeast of England, we've also had a look at the whole concept of participative management, where the management of the research is actually from the beginning involves people from the indigenous community. And of course, that raises challenges which we don't manage to deal with very well in England. For example, we have co-design and co-creation and co-planning and all the jargon. But in a sense, the budget is always distributed before the co-design or the co-creation or the co-thing happens. So the community ends up with a fraction of the resources available for the research. So I mean, these are the challenges here. But I just wonder whether the action research and that potential of participative management is something which would challenge, the university systems and these problems. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, I decided to be silent about the type. It was actually an action research, in the sense that we try to meet with the communities. We try to not to involve some of the scientific, terms or techniques that are usual to us at the university when we are carrying out this research. Although when this project get to a stage, we are going to, because we are trying to see that at the end of the day, the findings from this project will be published in a journal, and we are going to actually subject some of these things to some of those things. But another challenge that we are facing with the host communities here that is actually causing a kind of disconnect between them and the university is the high rate of illiteracy among the people in terms of their inability to, read and write in basic English language and some other things. So this is actually not encouraging the university to co-create programs with them.
Yeah.
And when we discovered this, we encouraged the university to organize some literacy classes for this. The majority of them are adults, they are older adults, and they are doing some businesses. Some of them are farmers. So we felt that if the university is able to take literacy classes to them, they will be able to acquire this competence of reading, of writing, and of doing some basic arithmetic, so that at the end of the day, this will translate to a kind of improvement on their profession. And the university will also be able to, relate with them as they should. So those are the few challenges that we have identified. And one of the recommendations that our project is actually going to make is that the university should engage one of them, at least with some certain level of literacy, to work with the university at the University Community Engagement Office, so that most of these challenges can be brought to the doorstep of the university, and the kind of intervention that they desire at the community level can also be looked at, so that it won't be that the university is, enforcing or dictating on them. So it's one of the things we are looking at as well.
Thank you. Yeah. Just to add one small part there, one particular project here lasted for a few years. The university actually moved their office into the local community, and the students actually did some learning there. So in a sense, that worked extremely well. And the staff of the university, the only expectation of them in terms of teaching was 6 hours per week in the university. The remainder of the work time was actually spent in this office type place, which in real life proved to be an old hairdresser shop in the local community. So in some senses it had a natural feel about it, and it wasn't another public building. So in a sense, that was the operational base, from the university, literally in the community, which I think changed opinions of local people about what to expect and the kind of people they might meet, and not be afraid of that. So just a little add-on thing there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. Jim, can you ask your question? I can see Jim Roberts.
Hello.
Hi,
Please
go ahead.
Yeah, my internet is not stable, so I just wanted to make my contribution.
Okay.
I am Simparashem Namad from Zimbabwe.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sande, for your presentation. It was so touching, and it is very practical. It shows the communities, where we are living with these institutions, and how our institutions are relating with the communities where they are situated in. But from your university context, I got some volatility to say it is very volatile, the situation. Because if you pick from what is happening in South Africa recently, if people are not happy with something, they will just wait for just a small thing to happen. Then they put their anger on that recent phenomenon, but it will be an accumulation of angers. What I'm saying is that there is need to relook at that situation to say there might come a time whereby students might want to stage something. They might not be happy with something in relation to how the university is run. Then we might have a student strike. So if we have an unhappy community around such a university, then when students do their strike, they can join hands with the community, then the chaos can erupt. You see what is happening in South Africa?
Yes.
So it seems as if your situation is good, but it's not all that good. It has to be helped in somehow so that there is some sort of happiness. But I picked what the university is doing to say literacy. You can also pick community development projects for the community so that they have something to do. To the extent that when something negative happens to the university, then they do not join hands with the negative forces and to destroy everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for this contribution. Yes, actually, the reason why we are going into this project is for the situation not to escalate to that situation of South Africa where some youths think that the best way to address such situation is to go to shops and malls to go and loot. If you look at that situation very well, you see that it's actually a kind of an outburst. It's a kind of response to a kind of an aggravated situation. And if this had been addressed before now, I believe that the situation would have been a different scenario now. And that's what we are actually saying, that the time for more community development practitioners to look into this. Sometimes our universities are helpless too, because most of the people that are at the level of management are not community development experts. And we community development practitioners need to really work with the university, designing programs, designing projects that we think will help the community, that we think will help us to avoid any future outbursts from the indigenous people. Because whether we like it or not, when a problem keeps compounding, it will burst some days and it will result to something that will be very, very disastrous. And we think that if the university is able to address it at this level, then we will not have such situation that will really be dangerous for the entire country like we are having in South Africa. And I hope that government in South Africa is not only looking at that from the political eyes only, they should also look at it from the development perspective, and by also engaging some community development experts in responding to that situation there. Thank you so much for the contribution.
Thank you, everybody. So I think we'll just have to wrap up our conversation for today. And if you do have any further questions or comments or anything, you can always email me and I'll make sure that it gets passed on to Sunday. Or Sunday, if you want, you can even put your email in the chat and people can email you directly. And otherwise, let's just give him a round of applause. That was amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sunday, so very much. So I'm just going to end the recording here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening.